Welcome to the Tone Lounge Podcast, the definitive music industry and gear podcast with Jonathan Gilmet and Frank Fleckenstein.
What's up, guys, and welcome. Indeed, this is the Tone Lounge Podcast, and it has been quite a while since we appeared on this platform, or whatever platform you're looking at. My name is Frank. I'm your host, and today with me, as always, my wonderful co-host, Jonathan Gilmet, aka the Duke of Voxington. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very good, man. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked. I'm pretty stoked and excited to record with you again. And it has been quite a while. I think the last time we actually recorded something was the episode with Steve from Effects Pedal Planet, and that must have been like November or something. Now we're in March.
Yeah.
It must have been November-ish. I'm not sure. Yeah.
It was before the holidays. Oh.
Definitely before the holidays.
Minute, man. Yep.
Yeah. Life has been pretty busy. Started a new job last year in September, and that kept me on my toes. Working on new pedal designs. I'm sort of back into like the nerdy side of, modifying my guitars. And sort of, I've also been trying to find my way back to sort of the guitar player in me. Because I feel like I was on the wrong path, in the sense that I was trying to get better at a lot of things guitar-wise, like playing and like applying different styles and all that kind of stuff. And at some point I realized I'm pretty much good in a certain range of guitar playing, but that stuff I'm doing really well. And people always told me, it's like, hey, when you do that, it always sounds like I can hear you out. When you strike a chord like that and that, I know it's you. And so I've sort of gotten back to that instead of, trying to be able to play everything. So, how's it been for you? How is Edmonton treating you?
Well, Edmonton is Edmonton. On my end, dude, I'm keeping busy. So, like we were talking about how it's been a few months since we recorded, and I think it's safe to say that anyone that listens to the podcast, if they listen regularly, they're going to see that there are drops. Like, we're going to be doing videos really intensely for a while, and then it completely drops for a few months, and then we're back at it. The reason is that we're both busy. On my end, I went from having one YouTube channel to 3. So
I've seen.
Yeah. Wow. So now I have a guitar channel, and I also play bass, right? And it's kind of confusing for the people that are there for guitar to just watch a guy play guitar, and then all of a sudden he's doing bass stuff. So I was like, maybe I should get all the bass stuff onto a separate channel. That way it makes more sense. So starting over isn't easy, especially not in 2026. So I'm putting out demos on that, particular channel every week, and dude, it strips. It's like I'm barely getting anything. So I was lucky when I started 8 years ago with TL Toneworks. I got to ride that wave, but now that I'm starting 2 more channels, I'm noticing like, dude, this is really tough. So I have a bass channel, I have the guitar channel, then I have another channel where I take like all the woo-woo mystical stuff, I have a look at it, and I'm trying to filter out like between the debunking stuff and the I believe in everything, and I'm looking at more middle ground stuff where I'm like, okay, let's investigate. So sometimes that can take me like 2-3 weeks of reading books, looking at all the viewpoints, and then trying to distill that into what is the truth in there. So if you take UFOs or conspiracies or whatever it is, and then I'm trying to ground it with something that's more level-headed, which I find a lot of the content on YouTube isn't. It's either debunking or it's I believe everything. So I was like, I'm already interested in this stuff. Let's try to have fun with it. But it's way different than doing guitar stuff, because guitar stuff, it's like you get the pedal, you test it out, you're like, cool, slap a mic in front of your amp, wiggle, you record it, you edit, you throw it out. Takes me maybe like 3 hours to put a video together. That new channel takes me like 3 weeks to make 2 videos. Right?
Oh, damn.
Part of it is that it's heavy research. I don't want to bullshit myself into, like, let's say I look into JFK, right? You're looking at a murder and you're like, okay, there's 1 killer. No, there's 2 killers. No, there's like 15 people out there shooting at this one guy. And you're like, wait a minute, those can't all be true, right? So if you start to investigate, then you're like, okay, maybe you end up at a point where it's a standstill. Like, you can't prove it, you can't disprove it. If that's where I land, that's where I land. So it's more like fun. It's to be completely different from the guitar stuff. But dude, it's taken all my time. Like 3 channels. I don't know how I'm going to be able to sustain it, but that's the beauty of ADHD, is that you go down the rabbit hole and you're like, hey, I can do all these things. No, you can't. Oh, no, I can, for about 3 months, and we'll see where I'm at in 3 months from now.
Yeah. But with these 3 channels, do you, like, if you look at the metrics, like how do you look at it and see, like, for example, the guitar channel? I know that at some point you said like it's like totally stalling, but then it sort of was uptrending again. You said,
yeah. What I'm noticing, and this is just my own analytics, I can't speak for other channels. I'm noticing that the traditional demo, people are kind of fed up with it. Maybe it has to do with economics. You know, people are trying to save their money. If we're being truthful about what's going on worldwide, everyone is feeling inflation. Like, inflation is bad. You have all like the trade wars and all this bullshit. So when you're here and you're like, this is a brand new pedal from this company, and people are like, you know what, dude? I don't want to be tempted by another pedal. Like, I got pedals. I need to put groceries in my fridge right now. So I'm sorry, but unless you're showing me how to use my other pedals, I'm not interested in new stuff. That's what I'm seeing through the data. So if I'm taking something that, I don't know, let's say it's a guitar amplifier, like a Fender Deluxe Reverb or the AC-15, and I'm showing something different, like what happens if I swap out the speaker or I change the tubes or stuff like that, I get views. So as long as I'm not trying to entice someone into buying something, I'm going to get views. If I'm showing them a new product, the views go way down. Like, they'll peak for a while, and then after that, it's like there's a drop off. That video's done. And the only conclusion I have is that people are kind of fed up of being force-fed the typical demo stuff. So if you show them something new, a new approach, as long as you're not going like, this is a game changer. People are like, yeah, everything's a fucking game changer. Like, you guys have to use different verbiage here. Like, stop trying to clickbait. So yeah, YouTube is a very different landscape since, I would say, it started in like 2024. I started to see a dip, and right now it's like I'm steady at 50,000 views a month. The year before that, in 2023, I was at 100,000 views a month.
Okay.
So it's like we're talking half the views.
And for the other channels, I mean, obviously you just started those, but like usually when you start something in the beginning, there's sort of like a period where you think like nothing's happening, and then you get like some really nice uptick. Have you experienced that with the other channels?
Not yet. So Bass Freaks is like, I started that in around November of last year. What I've noticed is that certain videos are like slow burners. You put them out, you know, have a whole lot of views, and then all of a sudden there's an uptick in views, and then it's pretty regular. So it's very different than the guitar stuff.
Okay.
The bass audience is a different mindset than guitar. Guitar, we're like, man, 100%. I'm going to swap out the pickups, and I'm going to change the tuners, and I'm going to swap out the speakers. And bass players are more like, how do I get that tone? with like 2 pedals.
Yeah.
Okay. You simplified the whole thing, but then you get to find out that's even harder than the guitar stuff, because you have to have like the core instrument is almost more important than whatever you plug into. So I have 4 basses here, and I would almost need like 3 more to really cover all the grounds. And then I have, I don't know if you could see behind me up there, have a SVT3, and right below it is a Max 450 from PV.
Yeah.
So those are 2 heads. I use those. And I'm still looking for like a B15 type of thing, just so I can go for the classic bass tones. So all in all, I would say that the guitar stuff, it throttles. Like it's capped off. Like you're not going to get like millions of views on a guitar pedal demo. It's just not going to happen. My 3rd channel, Strange New World, that one here, it's too new, so I can't say, but I can already tell that it doesn't have the same cap as the gear stuff because it's more generalized, right? So if you're talking about Roswell, or if you're talking about Lost Civilization, that attracts way more people than guitar stuff. Like if you're a regular person and you see a video on a Tube Screamer, the odds of you clicking, and even if you did, the odds of you sticking around if you don't play guitar. See,
difficult.
So that's why the 3rd channel is a bit of a test for me, just to see, like, I've been doing YouTube for 8 years. Can I take all that knowledge and apply it on a channel that's more like generalized? It should have a broader appeal, but that takes time. Like, it could take me a year, 2 years before it really takes off. So right now, the only thing that really enables the whole thing is the fact that I have a need for creativity. I need to create stuff. If I wasn't that, I'd be doing something else or going stir crazy. So,
all right.
Yeah. So that's why it's pretty much the only reason why I have 3 channels, that I don't want to go fucking nuts, because if you give me too much time, dude, it's not a pretty picture. So I might as well just wear myself out on keeping busy, and that way I can sleep at night. Or else I'm in bed and I'm going, what happens if I take the Tube Screamer, but I put it last in the chain?
So, what I've noticed is, so I've just recently, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, started to put content up on my channel. The interesting thing is that, so I did some sort of like an announcement video where I said, hey, here's what I'm going to be able to provide you in terms of content. I'm not going to go back to the days where I first I arranged a backing track. Then I played over the backing track. I recorded myself playing over the backing track. Then I talked about the piece of gear I had at hand. You know, that was the topic of the video. And then I had to edit all that stuff. And obviously it wasn't, like, in terms of format, video format, it's not compatible. So you load everything into Final Cut, which then needs to be converted so you're able to edit it. And then you edit it, which takes time as well. And then it has to be like reconverted into a format that YouTube understands, which is then obviously compressed. So that was just too much time. I've sort of streamlined the process now, so I can easily record something. And, you know, like, for example, I did a couple of shorts, and with these, like, the shorts, they essentially took me an hour to make. Like, it's a 1 minute short on YouTube, and I can record it directly in a way that Final Cut understands immediately. So it doesn't have to be, you know, converted from, you know, what is it, MP4 or MOV to, you know, the Final Cut format or the Apple format. It's immediately recorded like that, and then I just, you know, put the track that I've recorded under it, sort of put them align, like time align, and just export them. So it's really, really nice way, and that is sort of the way forward for me. And the result was that I've lost a few subscribers, but I think a few people were just like, they saw the notification, oh, there's a new video. What? I'm still subscribed to this guy. Why? Why did I even subscribe in the first place? Maybe they subscribed because they, I did a video on the guitar they were interested in and they subscribed, or I did something else. Or they remembered that I did this video criticizing the Fender Tone Master, and they were like, no, fuck that guy. Because they're now happy with their Tone Master or whatever. But in general, and I mean, since the last time we talked, a lot of stuff has happened. At least I feel like a lot of stuff has happened. So NAMM Show took place. I went to NAMM Show this year on behalf of my of the company I'm working for, but also had some time to sort of walk around, check the mood. So spend time in between appointments to check what's going on. And what I feel, have you followed NAMM at all? Have you sort of followed the news stream around NAMM or not?
I did. I have to admit, like we were talking a bit before we started the podcast, I've been kind of uninterested by new releases for a while now. I did watch some of the releases from NAMM, but nothing really stood out. Like there was nothing that compelled me to go like, I need to write down the name of this pedal. I'm going to keep an eye when it's out. I'm going to buy it. Like there was nothing really like that. I think the only thing that really stood out was, I think they're called Shark guitars. I don't know if you've seen those. They were at NAMM, and they were also at Guitar Summit a few years ago.
Yeah, I remember Shark guitars.
Yeah,
let me just.
They were showing this guitar where you can literally refret your guitar yourself in like mere minutes. You can push
exactly.
And you take the fret out, and they have like these frets already like perfectly filed. You just slip them back into the fretboard. I was like, that's interesting, because I can't refret a guitar to save my life. So if you can do that yourself, that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, they. Is that the same company that also makes like these effects cards that you can put into the guitar?
I'm not sure about that. I saw this particular brand with, I think it was Dweezil Zappa that stopped by their booth, and they were showing him a guitar, and I think they're like talking about building him a special guitar too. So. Like, it's really interesting. If I can find it, I'll send you the link so that you can maybe insert an image or whatever. It's the only thing where I was going like, holy, like they're going all in. Like these guys are trying to stand out from the crowd. Obviously, maybe they didn't stand out as much as I thought they would, but like, that was one. What are some of the companies or maybe products that you saw that were outstanding at NAMM?
So, my impression of NAMM overall is that there were less brands in general, less exhibitors. You saw way more open space, which is something that I saw happening at some point with Musikmesse in Frankfurt. When it was still existing, that you saw that less and less people are coming because it was sort of redundant to go there, because you already had the NAMM Show and all the new releases were sort of launched there. Then, and I felt the same thing. A few companies that was sort of like really missing, that always had like a steady presence. Like Marshall wasn't there, but they probably weren't there because they had nothing to release. So why would you be there? And just for the name. But we've spoken about Marshall, I feels like they're still in the same situation than they were like a year ago or 1.5 years ago, where like the guitar amp part makes 5% of their business in total at this point. Yeah. So, why bother with NAMM?
I think if I'm not mistaken, I think they have a new toothbrush, like an electric toothbrush on the way.
Available now at Costco.
Yeah, and it's like you brush your teeth and you hear like this guitar solo, and you just have to move your mouth and do the wah sound.
Yeah. So it's essentially an electric toothbrush meets a talk box. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And you can go whoa, whoa,
yeah, do the whole
whoa.
yeah,
You can
the
play
Peter Frampton.
Yeah, it's so I saw a couple of things that I feel stand out, and I see a trend towards something that I also feel like I'm sort of approaching in terms of like simplifying things. I see a trend back to amps, actually, to guitar amps, because at this point we have so many products around modeling and profiling and you know, the neural amp modeling and whatnot. There's so much stuff out there at this point where people, you know, can pick and choose whatever they want, and they are going to exactly get that, and it sort of serves their purpose, whatever the purpose is. You know, if you're playing live and you need to be as portable as possible, you know, there is something for you. You can buy a Kemper, you can buy the Kemper obviously in different formats. You can buy an XFX, or, you know, an AX, what's it called? FM3, all different sort of formats for that as well. Then obviously we have Neural DSP. Neural DSP released the Quad Cortex Mini, which sort of looks like I don't know how these portable PlayStations or portable Game Boys are called, but it looked a little bit like that, because, you know, I passed by the booth and I had to take a picture, because it was looking as if you were going through like some electronics market and people were trying out the newest PlayStation, you know, because the screen and you just have 4 buttons around it.
Yeah.
And they were, and it's funny. You never know how these things play out, because, you know, they made like some marketing hints here and there in anticipation to the launch, which was essentially the day before NAMM started, and people were expecting something completely different. They were expecting, you know, a Cortex with more buttons, with more foot switches. It's like you already have enough on that. So it's, yeah, but it's another hardware unit, and now Neural DSP is sort of being criticized for not doing the groundwork, which is what they promised when they released the Quad Cortex in the first place, where they were like, all the plugins that we have are going to be able to be ported into the hardware, and that only has happened to a certain extent. And recently there was an interview with one of the founders, and he essentially said, like, it's not our main focus, you know? So that's sort of weird, because that really, you know, I would be thrown off. You know, if I'm waiting for the John Mayer plugin to be available for my Quad Cortex, and the company says, well, you know, it's tougher than we thought to make this happen. I was like, well, okay, well then you overpromised in a way.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we have to take into account that it's still the company where I see they are going to be the future of that sort of game. Not because I dislike the Kemper or I dislike Fractal and their products, but, you know, before you had the people that used the Kemper for profiling, and they were like, okay, this is the ultimate way to do it. And then Fractal has the component-based modeling, and people were like, no, that's the most authentic way. And the Neural DSP stuff just does both. You know, it has the component-based modeling, which is what these guys do, like in their laboratory, but it also has the capture side of things, where you can essentially do what the Kemper does. And if the Kemper does it better, or the other thing does it better, it's up for discussion, you know, and everybody has their own but it sort of offers these two worlds just in one package. And so obviously they were up there. Boutique Amps Distribution had a couple of great things. I think the thing that really stood out to me, I don't know if you've seen this, but Wampler has released like a little pedal board amp called the Pedal Head. And essentially what they're using in that thing, first of all, it's a Class D power amp in there. And Class D power amps are nothing new. You know, Class D power amps have been around for quite some time. You know, Seymour Duncan has these power amps for the pedal board that you can use. But most of them sound sort of static, and they lack this like sort of sag and saturation part of what, you know, a tube power amp would do. And they have taken a chipset, or like a processor, a machine learning processor that only two companies at this point are using: Boutique Amps Distribution and SpaceX, which tells you something.
Yeah.
And they have implemented a way to sort of send a test signal to the connected cabinet, and then the test signal picks up the impedance of the connected speakers and other characteristics as well. And then they are creating certain like power amp profiles that you can like choose from. You know, for example, the one of a, you know, sort of British style power amp. And what they did, I was in a small booth that was private, where they had a Friedman tube head and the pedal head, and they had an A/B switch, and you could like go between them. It was pretty much impossible to hear the difference or feel the difference.
Wow, that's nuts.
And this whole thing is the size of is probably two Wampler pedals, but it's like super thin, and it weighs next to nothing, and it's a total of 120 tube watts, so equivalent to tube watts. That was probably the most impressive thing that I've seen at NAMM. Other than that, it was a lot of small companies, which obviously, if the big ones are not going, there's more attention for the smaller guys, which is great. You have the occasional OEM Chinese manufacturer that on the last day tries to sell everything from the booth because they want to take don't want to take it back to China.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's more and more affordable guitars that are actually good, which I think is good to sort of keep the momentum going and to keep, you know, inviting people into picking up an instrument, which I think is very, very positive. There's different companies, you know. Have you ever heard of Spira guitars?
I don't believe I have.
Company, so the sort of head company is based in Slovenia or Slovakia. Guitars are made in Asia. And it's good stuff. It's good stuff for like next door to almost no money. You can get an absolutely rip axe for like $300 to $350. And they're well made, roasted maple necks, pretty decent sort of own brand pickups, which is rare to find, because the first thing you do is you buy a budget guitar, you change the pickups.
Yeah.
Not necessary here. So that's a trend that I very much like. I feel like there's a trend back to tube amps, or to sort of like what's closest to a tube amp, and you know, is still like tube based. Like for example, the preamps that Tone King does, the Imperial preamp, like the Friedman IRX, these kind of things.
Yeah,
I see more of these, and I see more people being interested in them. So yeah, so overall good stuff, I think.
So I want to bring it back to a question, to something you stated earlier. You said that when you were at NAMM, you noticed that there was a trend towards like real guitar amplifiers. Why do you think that is?
That's a good question. And I would have to add that at this point, I don't see an uptrend in amp sales. Amps are still being sold. Amps are still being sold, but people are going for sort of smaller format amps, more than 100-watt full stacks, because nobody has means to transport them or even use them somehow. I feel like the amount of people with option paralysis around, modeling devices or multi effects is getting bigger. And also there's some good content around the fact that these digital products, they have a certain lifespan. And at some point, when the next or the next generation of that sort of product comes out, you're being faced with the eventual fact that it's not going to be supported anymore. And that means no more firmware updates. And you're sort of forced into getting the next generation.
Yeah.
And we see this happening with mobile phones all the time, or with like computers. At some point, your Mac or PC or whatever you use is not sufficient anymore for certain tasks because other things have evolved, and so on and so forth. And I feel I'm not a huge fan of Red Shull and his videos, because like half of it, I feel like after 5 minutes it's I don't know.
Don't be critical of Red Shull.
Why?
Well, I don't know. I felt like, look, you're allowed to have your opinion, okay?
We're all for free speech. Free speech.
I understand what you're...
free speech to this country.
Yeah. No. What I think when it comes to exactly content like that, where you're thinking about the digital format or the analog stuff, some YouTubers sometimes use like real amps, but they use amps that are so freaking expensive, most people can't relate. And then you got the people who are like, oh, here's the new version. Remember, I've been making content for like a year on this one device. Now they come out with a new one, and that's all I'm going to be making from now on. So you guys who have the previous model, good luck, right? It's part of the reason why I haven't really gone like super gung-ho on the whole digital thing. I have the HX Stomp. I have the Trident from UX. I have, what is it called? The Matri Box from Sonic Cake. So I have like a few different digital platforms. And just like you mentioned before, the problem is that the whole rendering the whole product obsolete is built in to the marketing. Like you buy this thing, you do the updates, and eventually the updates stop coming. And you're like, okay, it's been a while. And then you go on forums and you read, and people are like, I'm sure there's a new model coming. I'm sure there's a new model. And of course, there's something better that comes along and has the options you wanted in the previous model, but they will not give it to you through an update. You have to buy the new model. I don't like that. I hate that. Like, I fucking hate it. I have tube amps all around me. When there's an issue with it, the company doesn't send me an update. I just buy new tubes. And if it's not tube related, I take it to a tech. He'll fix it, and it's going to be good for another like 10, 15, 20 years. With these digital things, they're cool. I like the concept. But making it like a fucking paperweight after a few years of using it is not something I like to put my money into. I feel like I'm throwing my money out the window.
Yeah, 100%. That's sort of the main difference really, that, you know, you could, whatever sort of amp you have, you know, even if it's a solid state amp, if there is an issue, there's most likely a way to get it fixed, you know. And with a tube amp, you know, if the tubes have sort of lost any sort of life, you get new tubes, you get it rebiased with the new tubes. In some cases, you even have the chance to, you know, get a tube upgrade, get better ones, or maybe get different ones if the platform allows for it, and then you probably end up with an even better sound. You know, so I feel like that's one component, and also just, you know, simplicity. You know, simplicity, and that goes back to like the whole option paralysis thing, where I feel like people will realize that they only use around, I don't know, like 5% of what a unit like the Quad Cortex or the XFX or what you name it can do. And then, you know, what's the point? What's the point? These things still have a purpose. Obviously, they make touring easier for people who need to make touring as easy as possible. And since 99% of the people standing in front of the stage have no clue anyways, you know, they can't tell the difference. And honestly, most of them probably don't give a shit. You know, it definitely solves the problem. But again, I see that there's a trend back to like simplicity, and, you know, back to something that is eventually going to last you for a very, very long time, unless you set it on fire.
Yeah. I've just to make a parallel with what you're saying, I've been to 3 shows since the last time we recorded. So I've been to a concert where there was Wage War, Volbeat, and 3 Days Grace. All 3 bands had digital modeling, every single one of them. My experience as a guitar player in the audience, I was like, that's weird. There's no guitars coming from the stage. So the only thing coming from the stage from where I was sitting was the drums. Everything else was in the PA. It's a weird experience. Then I went to see the Brothers Landreth.
Oh.
That's all analog. Like, they all have real amps on the stage. And I was sitting there kind of reminiscing about the previous show. I'm going, they don't have the world's biggest budget. Like, they're not a super big band with like unlimited funds. And here you have Joey Landreth with 2 Fender Deluxes. He's got a stereo setup and he sounds fucking great. And I'm feeling it from where I'm sitting because I know the sound is coming from the stage. Then I went to see another show a few weeks ago, mostly Canadian bands. There was Econoline Crush, Big Wreck, and the American band Live. Every single one of those bands had real amps on the stage. It sounded fantastic. Same venue I had been at with Volbeat, Wage War, and 3 Days Grace. Same venue. Experience for me was completely different because I could hear, like, there's a guitar there and there's another guitar there. I can hear them. They're coming at me. With the previous show, it's like nothing's coming at me except that drum in the middle. So I'm seeing bands starting to slowly go back to real amps. And I'm wondering, is it kind of a, like, I don't know, form of protest against digital stuff? Is it because the experience isn't as, I don't know, like touch and go with digital stuff versus like real, like tube amps? I'm kind of trying to formulate the question here because I'm seeing some bands going, I'm not touching the modeling, I'm sticking to real amps. And other bands are like, no, we're fine with the digital stuff. We're going to stick with this. So I don't know, like, what's the mindset between the both of them?
So I feel like it has to do. So one part of the equation is obviously the economic one, and the ability, to have someone set up your stuff, because that's essentially what happens. In some cases the bands still do their own sound check, but in other cases they don't. I don't know what the deal with Volbeat is. I have no clue. But Volbeat essentially are sort of, I don't know if they're still in the same ranges anymore, but they used to support, used to open up for Metallica.
Yeah.
So is that sort of venue that they used to play. I'm not sure if that's still the case. If the venue was like large, or if it was arena.
Here it's Rogers Place. That's where they have all the hockey games. So it's a huge arena.
Okay. And yeah, in most cases, it's a convenient thing. You want to streamline things, and when you streamline things, you try to take out everything out of the equation that is a variable. And for many sort of touring operations, a tube amp is a variable, because you switch it on and it switches on in a different venue with, obviously you can buy like voltage stabilizers and all these things, stuff that Joe Bonamassa carries around so that he has the same voltage for his amps every time. You can do that, but that's an extra ton, because these things weigh a lot, and you need to apply to a lot of amps. But if you could do that you can take out at least that variable. And for Volbeat, I feel that's the case. They want to be as streamlined as possible. They just want to switch on the rack, and they want to have the same sound everywhere they go. And they want to take out all the variables. Whereas guys like the bros Landreth, for example, and Joey Landreth, I feel like, and in most cases they play rented amps. Mm-hmm. So they go on tour. They've been on tour recently in Europe as well. I unfortunately missed their concert in Cologne, which I'm still biting my ass on, but and they had rented amps. So he has a pedal board, and he says, I need that sort of type of amp, and he gets that. So, but it's not the same amp that he plays, obviously.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, but they are still able, to sort of fight the fight, even though there's a variable. They can deal with the variables. They actually sort of, blossom around the variables of things. Same with the bands that you mentioned. I feel like, especially a band like Life or Big Wreck, these guys have so much experience with like dealing with the variables that they probably rely on things being a bit difficult because they like the fight. And this way, every concert becomes sort of a unique moment.
Yeah.
And I feel like with these completely orchestrated, all variables taken out, very streamlined concerts, is sort of like replaying the album and how the album sounds a little bit.
It's a great point, because when I saw those three first band, like Volbeat, 3 Days Grace, and all that, it felt more rehearsed. It felt like there was a click track there. Everything was like perfect. This last show with Big Wreck and Live, dude, warts and all. Like sometimes the beat would drift. You would hear the guitar squeal because it's really fucking loud.
Right. Yeah.
It's like they weren't embarrassed by being humans and playing a concert. It's like BPM wasn't perfectly matched every time. The drummer would start the song. So when you listen to a concert like that, if you're so used to everything being perfect and sounding exactly the same, it might throw you off. You might be like, man, I don't feel like the band was like on the ball for that show.
Right.
But that's kind of the beauty of being old school, is that you can allow the audience to have a completely different experience every night, where I feel like the original model with like a click track, backing tracks, everything going through a modeler kind of eliminates those things and makes you stick to what you think the audience wants to hear, which is basically the album replayed live. I think there's room for both, but perhaps that's like really the core mindset between those two types of band. One is like, I'm going to crank my amp and I'm going to let the sound guy struggle. It's not my problem if this guy's got a hard time with my guitar. This is what I'm doing. And the other guy's like, is everything good? Like, I got an XLR, I have, a DI box if you need the DI box. I brought my own microphone. I got everything. Like, I'm a pro. I know what I'm doing. I just want to facilitate you. I think there's like two different mindsets there. How do you see it?
Yeah, I just sort of see it. Yeah, sort of see it the same way. I mean, I was mentioning Metallica. Metallica are now fully on
they're all digital
for a few years now, and they have a rack full of them. Because everything obviously needs a sort of a B setup in case one thing drops out, which it rarely does. And I mean, it's not like these guys are on a small budget. On the contrary. I mean, last time I've seen tickets for Metallica shows here in Europe, I was almost falling back over. It's like super expensive.
Oh, really?
So, and most of the money probably goes to them, obviously, and not so much into technicians, because there's less of a need for technicians if you have a setup like that. Probably need a handful of guys to set things up, and but I think there's more people busy with setting up the whole scenery instead, and creating, like, doing the fireworks and whatever they do, and not so much about taking care that the amps work and the pedalboard works and everything's wired correctly, and I
remember seeing
I think
some
it's a little bit like that.
I saw some shows like a long time ago where the people would bring in like 4, 5, 6 stacks of Marshalls, right? And you would see those on the stage. You'd be super impressed. Now you go to shows and they're like, they come out with the quad cortex, put it on the ground, they're walking off. What are you going to put in the background? I don't know, like maybe like forest, like fake trees or something. It's like, you need to fill that background if you want it to look pro. Back in the day, like, people used to rely on their amps. Like, I'm a Marshall player. Those are Marshall stacks, and I'm plugging through every single one of them. Now it's like, whatever, the Tone X on the ground, you plug it up, and you're like, good to go. I think visually that changes things, and I think there might be. There's less of
I think it's terrible. Yeah, I mean, I went to a metal show in Cologne in December with Katatonia being the headliner, a band that I really like. They have a great sound, and they had a great sound that evening. And there was not a single amp on stage, but they had sort of these displays in the back, these big LED screens where like the videos would run and sort of stuff. And I knew that they were playing some kind of stuff, whether it was Kemper or the XFX or you name it. Doesn't matter what they use. They sounded good. They sounded like you would expect on the album, and they were absolutely rock solid. But if you mess that shit up with the LED screens, then you also ruin the show, because they have this massive, like humongous LED screen in the back, and at some point something went wrong. And you essentially saw just the desktop background of the computer that was connected to. It was like some sort of beach in the Caribbean. Doesn't really play into, sort of like dark, melancholic metal show. It's the exact opposite. So, yeah.
That kind of reminds me of that one picture of like from the back of the stage, you have all like these dummy Marshall stacks, and there's like a Kemper on the side.
Yeah.
It's
That's
kind
a
of
good
the
one.
equivalent of that. Like the guy's rocking, and you see like the Marshall stacks go, and you just see the little Kemper in the back. You go, okay, kind of destroyed that illusion. So yeah, that's interesting. So
That illusion was destroyed quite a while ago.
yeah. So just to kind of get the feel for what you saw at NAMM, like we were talking about, like maybe a trend towards more amp, but not necessarily seeing an uptick in sales of amps. Is there any difference in the sales for the digital modeling stuff? Are you seeing that it's pretty much the same, or is there like an uptick in sales, a drop in sales?
So as far as I can see, and as far as I can sort of see and read the trends, then, you know, stuff like the Cortex and the other, like the other sister products, they are still doing pretty well. I don't know about Fractal, because Fractal is only direct sales. So I'm not sure about the data around that. Kemper has just released like an updated version of their profiler. I feel it's terrible that it still has this sort of toaster format. And I still feel they should have gotten better with the display and the sort of interaction, game, because it's still this stupid Game Boy-like display, and it's still the same interaction with the unit. And it's great that they've sort of upgraded the whole thing, and they have a faster engine in there and whatnot. I've seen bits and pieces of a video that Ola England did around the new Kemper, and it looks cool, but it's still like the same format. And it's fun because he was profiling a Mark II C Plus from Mesa Boogie, which is a phenomenal amp, obviously. And one of the comments that was really funny, because he said, well, thank you for the video. You just convinced me to definitely get a Mesa Boogie Mark II C Plus, which I thought was really funny. But yeah, I feel like these products are still going to do well. I see that there's a lot of demand for these sort of preamps with IRs as a solution to play live, but also to play at home, like, you know, the IRX, the Imperial preamp, the new Royalist, Tone King Royalist preamp, which is essentially like the British version of the Imperial. And yeah, DSM Humboldt, the Simplifier you probably have heard of, right?
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
They've released the Dumblifier, which is sort of obviously the same sort of concept, but based on a Dumble. And they actually did the work. They went to Japan to play the Dumble with the serial number 2 and completely analyze it. So they spent a couple of days with that thing, and it was not, the idea is not so much to be like an exact copy of that Dumble, but to recreate the feel, because this thing is all analog. It's all analog, which is kind of what they are doing. You know, they want like zero latency. So, and I know that the Dumblifier from DSM Humboldt right now is really on demand. There's a lot of people wanting this thing, and so I think these sort of formats are definitely uptrending. With amp sales, it's sort of difficult, really. When we spoke before we started recording, I told you that I'm diving my head into the Synergy ecosystem right now.
Yeah.
So I got myself the 20-watt head where you can change the modules. And man, this is so much fun. This is so much fun, because essentially, you know, with, you know, taking the module out, putting a different module in, you get a different amp with a different response, with a different sort of tonality, and it's so much fun. And essentially, I mean, the modules range around like $400,
Which is not that
It's-
much
it's
considering
not
that you don't have to
that
buy a
much.
whole amp, right?
Exactly. It's not that
Yeah.
much. And their sort of offering around what modules they have gets bigger and bigger every time. They're doing more collaborations with companies that approve the design and involved in the design. They did the Marshall JMP module recently, like sort of, I want to say in fall of last year. And yeah, this is really fun. And believe it or not, in most cases, I didn't even use a single pedal. You know, it's just straight into the amp and playing with the guitar, and it's so much fun. It's so much fun. Makes me want to go back to, you know, not even using pedals again. Maybe a tuner. You know?
That's kind of where I'm at right now. But it's funny because I remember, like, this must have been like, I want to say 2009 or maybe a bit before that. Randall was doing that very same thing. They had an amp with modules, and you could take it out. They were preamp modules.
Yeah.
And I was playing in a band at the time. We were releasing albums. We were touring, and I was like, you know what? I'm willing to sell my Angle and buy a Randall for the first time in my life. I'm thinking about buying a Randall. And I went to the store. I tried it. The guy showed me how you could remove it. So basically, there was like I think it was something like a Fender Deluxe for the clean, and it had like a Mesa Boogie for the preamp section or something along those lines. I don't recall the specific models, but I was blown away because I could go from the clean tone that I love to a massive distorted tone that is usable, that sounds fucking killer, and I didn't need pedals.
Right.
So I was like, I'm selling my rig and I'm buying that. I never did, because when I went to the store, they no longer were selling the Randall stuff anymore.
Oh,
I was like,
okay.
shit. And this is like kind of pre-Reverb and all this stuff. I think there was eBay back in those days, but like buying stuff online wasn't something I was comfortable with back in those days. So I never did migrate to that. But I think if I did, I would probably be just like you. Like I would have like modules and shit, and I might even be using the Synergy stuff. I think the concept is awesome, because whenever you use a clean amp with guitar pedals, it's essentially what you're trying to do, right? You have your clean tone you love, and you're using pedals to get the distortion you want, because the amp can't fucking do it most of the time. It either does really good clean or really good distortion, but I've never played a guitar amp that does both equally well. There's always like one that's better than the other. And with the Synergy stuff, what I find it like really interesting is that you can be like, I want the preamp section from this guitar pedal or this guitar amp to be my clean. So if you want, like, I don't know, something like a Vox or a Fender or whatever, and then you say, I want the distortion from whatever Mesa Boogie Mark II C+, and you put that in there, like, holy shit. Like, imagine you sell everything, you go towards that, and if it sounds legit, what's the point on having all these fucking amps? Like, I have like 13 amps here. If I were going to Synergy like you did, I would probably have 13 modules instead. You know, one amp, and
that's the thing. Essentially, you could essentially think of these like boutique pedals, you know, but boutique pedals probably go for the same amount of money, and if at some point your musical preference, you know, in terms of what you want to play changes, you know, it's you could probably get rid of that. Don't make that much of a cut, really, because you push the module in and out a few times, but that doesn't really, you know, it's not scratched or something. You know, it's rarely going to happen that, you know, you scratch your guitar, but you won't scratch one of these models. So like even visually, you won't mess them up. So you could essentially go and, you know, get rid of that and just get the one that you want or the new one. But the difference is, you know, so you would get an upgrade. If we make the analogy to the digital world, you'll get an upgrade, but not in the way as you would need to buy the whole thing again.
yeah,
You know, you could upgrade it, and it's going to last forever, and that thing that you sold is also going to last forever, and is going to serve someone else who is right now in sort of that vicinity.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Plus the IR side of it makes a lot of sense when you're playing directly into, you know, the audio interface. It sounds killer, and even has MIDI capability. So if you wanted to integrate it into a rig and switch everything, it's an absolute no brainer. And yeah, that has been fun. And what I'm doing right now as well is, so for years and years I've been trying to get the guitar that my personal hero, Ty Tabor from King's X, was creating all these tones on their early albums, which was a 1983 Elite Strat, which has nothing to do with the Elite Strat of today. It was sort of the predecessor to what then became the Clapton Strat, in a way, where you have noiseless pickups, where you have like an active electronic with an active mid boost and a TBX tone control.
Yeah.
The problem is the pickups were so microphonic that it was impossible to play this. So right now I'm trying to recreate that for myself, because I don't see myself buying a 1983 Elite Strat because the pricing is ridiculous. I mean, these things are now considered vintage, but they're shit because they're super heavy. Some of these, because they had a new tremolo system that Fender was developing that totally flopped. It was way too heavy, way too much mass. It was taking so much wood out of the body, almost like an Evertune bridge. You have to cut out a lot of wood for that. And so sometimes they weigh up to 5 kilos, which is like, for a Strat, is like...
Yeah, that's like Les Paul territory.
Les Paul territory and worse, you know. So for a Strat, that's absolutely unthinkable. The pickups are terrible because with more gain they become very microphonic. Ty Tabor used to make fun about it, and they used the guitar to sing into the pickups, you know, for choirs in the studio. It was so I'm right now I'm recreating that tone, but with good components. To have like all the control in the guitar, which includes a dummy coil, so that even though you have like a Strat sound, it's noiseless.
Yeah, hum canceling.
Yeah, with an active mid boost in there that is switchable in what range of, like, what sort of mid range is pushing, and with the TBX control, but a bit modified so that it only takes like low end away, sort of like a high pass filter in a way.
Yeah.
But it doesn't add to the treble because the single coils have enough treble already. So yeah, that's what I said. I'm sort of, I dive back into the nerdy world of modification.
I think it's funny because I remember when I discovered your YouTube channel, you were like rocking, I think, Kiesel guitars, and you had like all these fancy and modern instrument. And here you're talking about like 80s Strat with lace pickups and the TBX circuit and the whole thing. I actually had a Strat here, I think like a year ago, that had that kind of setup with the roller nut. I think it's the Wilkinson roller nut on the end. So
yeah, Strat Ultra or Strat Plus, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was a great Strat. I ended up trading it at some point because I have another one here that I like better. But I remember not bonding with the lace pickups that were in there because the in-between positions, they had no top end. They were like super scoop. They didn't do like the quacky bright thing. So
True.
Yeah.
True.
So I ended up not liking it because those are like two of my favorite position, 2 and 4. So I was like, okay, I don't know if it's because of the noise canceling nature of the pickup or how it's built, but it's like in position 1, 3, and 5, sounded good. I had no issues with it, but those in-between positions, man, I had to use a tube screamer or a clon to kind of boost up the high end. I was like, I'm fighting the guitar at this point, so it wasn't really for me.
Yeah,
but
the reason for that is because the Lace pickups were designed in a way, the design by Don Lace was actually extremely clever around how he made it possible. There's some hardware design around it that makes them nearly noiseless, but it also meant that he wouldn't do a reverse wound and reverse polarity middle pickup. But that sort of reverse configuration for the middle pickup creates the in-between position sound. Because it's like a counterweight, let's call it a counterweight, to the other coil, which is the bridge coil or the neck coil. And that sort of, you can also see it if you take a multimeter and you sort of measure the resistance. You can see that, for example, you usually have like 7 kilo ohms on the bridge pickup, and then it immediately drops down to half in the second position. So it goes like to 3.4, 3.5, something like that, where you would think, but that means I only have half the output. You don't hear that. Because in reality, the actual effect is not audible.
Yeah.
But that essentially creates that sort of quacky sound, the counterweight of the reversed pickup. However, when you have a dummy coil and the dummy coil is hidden somewhere under the pickguard, and it doesn't have magnets, so it's not picking up anything. It's just a reverse bound coil. So now you end up getting that in between position sound because it's not picking up it's not picking up the string vibration, because it's actually not a pickup, it's just a coil sitting somewhere. But with the Lace pickups, you're right, the in-between positions, they are not Strat type sounds. They're not sounds that you would, expect to hear, like the typical John Mayer sort of clean tone, the quacky stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I think Lace pickups get a lot of shit. I think very unnecessary, because they're still good sounding pickups. I've heard people playing amazing sounding stuff with them. But they're not your usual Strat pickups, that's for sure.
No, and that's kind of the interesting thing with Strats, is that people who love Strats, I being one of them, we love the sound. We just don't like the extra noise whenever you're playing at a certain venue. Let's say you got neon lights or whatever, and you go to the position 1, 3, and 5, and you get that shh in the background, and you're like, no, this is unpleasant. So you tend to go to the in-between just to cancel the noise. But then you have to stick there if the venue you play at is super noisy. So then you go with, like, I have some of the newer noiseless pickup in my Strat. And they sound good, but they have the same problem as the Lace pickups. When I go to the in-between position, there's like no, like the top end isn't there. You don't get that nice little chimey quack thing going on. So right now I'm struggling. So I keep going back and forth between regular single coils and these modern adaptation where they try to get rid of the noise, but they can't nail that stupid in-between sound. And I love that sound. And just knowing I can't get it, sure, I'm noise free, right? But just knowing I can't get it pisses me off. I like having the option. So right now I'm in like the process of trying to find the perfect Strat pickups that are going to give me at least less noise. It doesn't have to be completely noise free, less noise. And when I get to the in between, I don't want to sacrifice that sound. But I don't know what company would make that. I don't even know if anyone makes those type of pickups. Do you know anything that I could put in there?
The problem. So maybe a little shout out to the company where I buy all my pickups. It's a company from Croatia called Q Pickups.
Okay.
And this guy can pretty much do everything. He also does custom orders, essentially for the same price than a regular set would cost. Their pricing is extremely good because obviously it's direct to customer and there's like no in between sort of distributor. He ships worldwide, and he does amazing works. It's all hand wound with like proper materials and like to specification as well. So if you want a PAF style humbucker, he has the materials, that were used back then. I don't know where he gets them. And he has replicas of certain sets that are like highly sought after. Like, for example, the sort of John Mayer Big Dipper set that was in the first signature models that Fender did, that had like a slight mid scoop. That sort of stuff. The issue with noiseless single coils is always like, how do you get them noiseless? You always need a second coil.
Yeah.
And with noiseless, I believe, if I remember correctly, and everybody who's listening to this and knows better, please, leave a comment if you know better. I know a lot, but sometimes I get confused. I feel like the concept of noiseless pickups by Fender is they have a coil on the top, and then they have a separation that is pretty dense. I want to say like a steel or a copper separation from the other negative coil, or like the reverse wound, reverse polarized, reverse polarity coil, to prevent that the strings pick up on the one that's separated. But even with that separation, it's impossible for it to be like 100% neutral in a sense. And then again, because they are noiseless, there's no necessity to reverse wound and reverse polarize the middle pickup.
Yeah.
So my advice would be, if you want something that's noiseless, but you want a Strat tone and you want the traditional Strat tone, get a dummy coil. Get whatever set you want that you like the sound of. Get a dummy coil. It fits well between the volume pot and the three-way or five-way switch. Just stick some, glue or double-sided tape, and it sits there nice. It's not going to bother you. You can even install a switch to activate it, which is what I'm going to do. And then whenever you don't want it, because you want even a purer Strat tone, because what the dummy coil is going to do, it is going to take away a little bit of the top end, but the difference is very marginal, because you're wiring them in series. There are people who wire them in parallel, which takes away lots of the bass, but that difference is very heavy. So series is the way to go. The installation is super easy. It's like 3 solder joints. With the switch, it's 4 or 5, if you want a single switch to activate it. And you're good to go. When I'm ready with my project, I'm going to share a few clips with you, so what I mean. But it's an easy modification. The dummy coil costs like $40. So it's very inexpensive.
Can you repurpose a pickup that you have on hand and make a dummy coil out of it? Okay, because I got a lot of pickups.
If you have a pickup that is reverse wound, reverse polarized, well, reverse wound more than polarized, because what you need to do is you need to take out the magnets.
Okay.
You need to take out the magnets, and then you can repurpose that. There are tons of videos out there on YouTube how to do that. With people who have already done it, and that's really what you need to sort of pay attention to, is the resistance of that pickup should be somewhere in the range where the resistance of the other pickups, the live pickups, are, because otherwise you end up doing something that is not going to result in being great in terms of noise cancellation. You know, so if you have, for example, if you have a really hot pickup set in your Strat that like every pickup has like, I don't know, 10, 12, 13K of resistance, and then the dummy coil has 7, then you're not going to end up with a result that is, you know, to your liking, because it's not going to be enough resistance to match the live pickups. So there needs to be a balance. Now, that's the only thing you need to pay attention to, really. But people have repurposed like reverse wound pickups as dummy coils.
So in your opinion, that probably works best in terms of keeping the original Strat tone compared to going with like these humbuckers that pretend to be single coils.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, because that's the quest I'm on right now. So I think, in my opinion, one of the best Strat pickup set I've ever heard. I used to have it in that guitar, but because of the way my studio is, and whenever I'm recording guitar demos, I end up with a shit ton of noise, and I don't want to use a like a noise gate, because noise gates can be hit or miss. So knowing that, I'm going to have to bug you about that to see how I wire it. I do have an Obsidian wire solderless kit, so I'm not sure if I can actually install the dummy kit, and if I can, I'm going to have to look at.
You can, because essentially the dummy coil gets installed between the output of the switch and the input of the volume knob.
Oh, okay.
It's very easy.
So I could probably pull it off.
Very easy. You need to sort of try the direction, because obviously, it's 2 leads on that pickup, obviously, and you need to sort of figure out the direction, because if you put them in the same direction, there's not going to be any noise cancellation. So, but that is relatively easy to use. You connect them, or you solder them, and then you would go connect it to an amp, and put up the gain, and then you'll see, oh, okay, no difference, and then you change the position of the leads, and then it should work. One of the 2 ways that it works. But yeah, that's one way to do it, and it's definitely going to sort of preserve the sound that you expect from the guitar and the pickups,
which I find to be the hardest thing. The only solution I did find in this quest, trying to find like the right pickups, I think it was the Fishman. Like they have Fishman Fluence. But it looks like, in terms of installation, would require me modding my guitar. So I have like, I think they use a 9-volt battery for that. So
yeah, what they do, they don't do 9-volt batteries, but they have like, I think you can do 9-volt battery if you wanted to, but they also have these sort of, what are they called? Not pick tremolo back plates.
Okay.
That have a battery pack in them that you can sort of, so that's one way to do it if you don't want to use batteries. Obviously, there are like very good rechargeable batteries these days. But yeah, you would have to essentially modify the guitar to be active. So that's. And I always try to avoid that, to be honest.
Well, same here. Like, I mean, I don't mind modding as long as it's not one of those permanent modification. Like when you have to start routing, like a new cavity or something like that. Like I'm not too fond of that, because then if whatever system you're putting into your guitar doesn't really suit you anymore, and you want to revert back, now you got like this big like cavity you just made for nothing, and if you resell that guitar, someone's going to be like, what the hell do you do to the guitar?
Yeah.
I wanted to try this new thing with a like $2,000 guitar.
Yeah, exactly.
Not too fond of
that's gonna work well.
Yeah. And just a quick note like that, the whole dummy coil thing, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it kind of a Eddie Van Halen trick that he used back in the day? Like, you'd see his Frankenstein guitar, and he had like a guitar in there, like a guitar pickup in there that wasn't really wired, and you had like a guitar switch and shit? Like,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what happened there, but I feel like Brian May actually has had modifications done where a dummy coil was part of it.
really? Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, it's 3 single coils in the Brian May.
Yeah, the
guitar.
Burns pickups.
The Burns pickups, and he's playing into a bloody wall of Vox amps, which are being boosted, like treble boosted and equalized and whatnot. This has to be like a noise disaster with single coils.
That's one way
So
to put it. Yeah.
I mean, just imagining like, and like the Voxes are like all, fully blown up in volume and whatnot. So this has to be terrible in terms of how much noise is picking up with a single coil. So I believe
I can see that.
there was a modification that he had done on his guitars that involved a dummy coil. I could be wrong. But I sort of remember that there was something happening around that.
See how easily it can be influenced. You talk about dummy coils, and I'm like, and then at the end of the episode, I'm like, dummy coils, man. That's the route I'm taking.
Told you I'm a good salesman.
Oh, yeah. No, you are. It's like, I'm going to be investing a lot of time in looking this shit up and then bugging you about it. And next episode, I'm probably going to have a dummy coil on my guitar.
Yeah, please bug me. Please bug me 100%. You should. I've brought it up, and now you should bug me. But I'm happy to help because it's something
it's your fault.
It's my fault. It's simply my fault. I want to take a short moment to like a little shout out to 2 people actually. One is, and it's a gentleman you are familiar with because you're a fan of one of his circuits, is George Trips.
Really?
Yeah, because not only, I mean, for people who don't know but who are listening, not for the first time, who are like listening to us for quite some time, we did the Arc of Tone together, and the Arc of Tone pedal, so dual overdrive, is essentially 2 Red Llama circuits in one enclosure. And the Red Llama is an overdrive that George Trips from Way Huge did, I want to say in the 90s, late 90s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Which is essentially an adaptation of the tube sound fuzz, like a circuit from the 70s. And so George Trips only did Way Huge for like, I want to say 7 or 10 years, and then sort of, ceased operations. Then he went to work for Seymour Duncan, and obviously Seymour Duncan was, not Seymour Duncan, Dunlop. He went to work for Dunlop. I correct myself. And then Dunlop was obviously very, very much interested in sort of resurrecting the Way Huge brand, and all these designs came up again. And George Trips also, to me, made the coolest tube screamer adaptation ever, which is the Green Rhino.
Yep.
And I figured that out because what I do from time to time, and I think I've told you that, I buy sort of DIY PCBs because I want to study the circuit, and I call these study clones. And then I sort of look at the PCB and I put the pedal together, and I check the schematics and everything, and I try to see what every sort of component does. And then I put in a little housing and I sell the goddamn thing because, why would I want a shit ton of pedals or like PCBs floating around here? And I did so this is essentially yeah,
that looks cool, man.
like a really cool little thing that's essentially a clone out of a company called Ion Effects, so AION Effects.
Yeah,
they make Yeah, they make PCBs of pedals that still exist, but also of pedals that don't exist. And this is the PCB of that's closest to the version 2, the MK2 of the Green Rhino. It's, for me, it's the most usable Tube Screamer adaptation out there, because you can make it sound like a stock Tube Screamer if you want to, but you can make it sound like a Tube Screamer with more balls and with more low end. You can make it sound like a Tube Screamer that has this like sort of mid nose, but you can also dive it down a little bit if you want to. There's a bit more gain on tap, I feel. So it's super usable. It's super usable as a standalone sort of overdrive without the necessity to have the amp like already cranked to a certain extent, so that there's really an effect to it. So yeah, so shout out to George Trips for doing this thing in the first place, and shout out to Ion FX to make it possible for like average Joe to build this thing for his own. I mean, you could buy a Green Rhino MK2 probably, and they're not too expensive on the used market.
Yeah.
But the experience of putting one together yourself is definitely fun as well.
Now, here's the trick. Use that pedal, stack it in front of the arc of tone.
Oh, I've done that.
Yeah, it's a sound that I would say I would use like 80% of the time, like Tube Screamer in front of a Red Llama circuit. Well, I mean, Way Huge ended up combining both of those pedals, and they made the Camel Toe, which is essentially that, right? So the Red Llama and the Green Rhino. Another really cool Tube Screamer that I got my hands on. Like I hate the Tube Screamer, so if I keep one, it's because it has to do something special. It's the Hellmouth. I don't know if you ever heard of that. I think the company's called Creation Audio Labs.
Yeah.
So it does.
Yeah.
Okay. So it has a switch that does the TS808 and the TS9. But there's an internal boost. I don't know what the hell's happening in terms of the circuit, but it turns into a fuzz. So imagine a Tube Screamer that does the fuzz thing, and it's got these two LEDs because it looks like a face of a monster. And whenever you start to hit the peaks, the eyes light up and flash like this. It looks cool, and it also sounds pretty cool. So I have that right now on a pedal board, and it's I don't know why I hadn't heard of it until I got my hands on it, but it's a really cool Tube Screamer. So it doesn't have the flexibility of the Green Rhino, because the Green Rhino, you can take the bass and put it back in, and you can kind of shift the mids to wherever you want. Yeah. This one here does the traditional thing, but that internal boost, turning it into a fuzz, man, it's pretty fucking cool too.
That sounds fun. That sounds like a lot of fun. Okay.
Yeah. Check
Good
it out.
to know. Good to know.
I haven't done a demo on it yet. I don't know if there's any like good demos of it on YouTube, but at some point I will do a demo. So yeah, worth checking. It's a really cool pedal.
Definitely. Sounds good. I'm definitely going to check it out. So we are 1.5 hours in.
Wow.
And I think we need to wrap this up. But before we wrap it up, I would like to do a little bit of house cleaning. As you might know, if you're listening to us more regularly, we've tried a couple of times to give away 2 pedals. And it hasn't worked. And the people who we wanted to gift these pedals to, because it was a giveaway, so they were like free shit, for the 2 people who were drawn out, they never got back to us. And I'm sort of tired around this topic right now, which is why I've decided that I'm going to take the 2 pedals, I'm going to list them on Reverb, and the earnings out of that are going to a good cause. I feel this is the best we can do at this point. If we probably need 20,000 subscribers to hit enough people with a giveaway. I'm not sure.
I don't know. I don't get it.
It's super weird. So I'm going to link I'm going to put links to the listings. If you want to buy the pedals, they're reasonable priced. and we can choose an animal shelter, or we could buy a couple of instruments for a school that needs instruments or something like that, and then we just give them to kids so they can pick up an instrument, and we use the money for that. I feel that's the best thing we can do. We also do a little bit of an affiliate work, and we have links for that also in the description below. So if you're looking for some gear that you want to buy, we recommend using the links. They don't cost you anything, but they're going to give us a little bit of a percentage on that sale without a disadvantage for you. And that money is just, to get to pay for the subscriptions of the stuff that we use to create the podcast. Yeah. It's not something that we use to, buy a Ferrari or something. Far away from that.
Is that an option? You didn't tell me?
Is that an option? I didn't know. And lastly, you can always support us by subscribing to the YouTube channel if you're watching this on YouTube, or to subscribe to or to follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever sort of platform you use to listen to this podcast. And make sure you hit the bell icon and everything. You know the game, so that you get notified when a new episode comes out. As far as episodes go, what we've thinking about was that we're going to focus on episodes where we have an actual guest and we get to talk to someone, and focus on that more than meeting here every week to talk about stuff that at some point might feel redundant. I feel what we could do is we could sort of look at these topic-based episodes that we did in the past. We did the Vox-specific episode that was doing really well.
Yeah.
We did the Marshall-specific episode. We did the one on Rivera amps that also did surprisingly well, although Rivera is sort of like an underdog in the amp world. And I think we could do some of those. I feel there's potential there, and I think it's interesting to talk about these things. But we're not going to sit around here every week, to talk about stuff that at some point is going to be repetitive.
Well, and if we do this, like just you and I, we did talk about maybe introducing guitar pedals, amplifiers, where we can actually give examples of what stuff sounds like. So instead of just talking, there could be some audio examples. I mean, I'm well equipped here. You have a great setup over in your studio as well. So I think it's something that if ever we don't have a guest and it's you and I, we could have a topic. Vox, I think I got that covered. Synergy, you have that covered. Guitar pedals, I think between the both of us, we could probably run for like the next 10 years just on guitar pedals.
Yeah.
So if we do have this kind of back and forth, it's going to be talking, but with audio examples. And that way, like we could both, set something up where we could demonstrate some FFX pedals or, certain amplifiers. Like I got some really cool stuff here too. And I'm sure you have some even cooler stuff over in your studio. So if ever there's no guest, that is kind of the backup plan. We're trying to formulate this so it's more entertaining, and it's more about not just talking about the gear, and like it's kind of weird to talk about tone without actually demonstrating it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
That's
so if
true.
we can actually demonstrate, like if you say it's got a crunchy tone, well, what the fuck does that mean? Plug in, show what you kind of mean by crunchy tone or chimey or whatever.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll try that.
And it's always an option for you guys to make suggestions. We're always open for suggestions. So if there is a topic that you would like us to explore, whatever it is around the world of musical instruments.
Yeah.
If it's not wind chimes, I would be able to tell you a lot about wind chimes.
Or Dumbles with 59 Les Pauls. Like we can't pull that shit off.
That is going to be difficult.
Although I have a few dumbbells myself. But I bought them all.
Look, I don't have that. So, well, I could go in the digital realm. It's like, maybe.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. We wish you all the best. Have a great rest of the week and a good weekend. And until the next time we talk to you, we salute you.
Cheers.
Cheers.